I think, the turning economy creates opportunities. And, a lot of people are going to look at the downside, but the biggest and greatest businesses of all times, a lot of them were started during depressions and during down economies. And so there's huge opportunity that opens up. And what I think that is most important is that we evaluate ways to excel in the circumstances that are actually existing.
Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Level 9, about some of the stuff that keeps you busy, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. Yeah, Level 9 Virtual is a virtual assistant services company. So we provide direct hire virtual assistants to small businesses, big businesses, individuals, everything in between. So everything from middle management up into, full leadership, they hire virtual assistants to take a lot of the mundane stuff that even if you have in-house assistants, there's still stuff that just has to get done. And then for small businesses, typically we focus on the marketing side of things, anything graphic design related, anything video editing, marketing automation, CRM, funnels, all that stuff. That's kind of where we hang our hat. I hired my first virtual assistant in 2008, and I've had one every single day since. Right now I have an internal team of 22 or 24, I think, that operate, I think we're up to 6 companies now. Of our 6 companies, we do, over 8 figures, and they run the businesses entirely so that I can go have adventures and enjoy Montana.
So for you, like we talk about leadership, we talk about management and things like that, and what you've built requires an exceptional level of trust. And I bet just in a couple seconds we've had like chatting together, you're like, I just don't want to be bothered with all this stuff. I'd rather someone else do it.
Correct.
But how did you scale that? Like, how did you put those systems in place? How did you put enough, both of course, trust into the people, but systems to support the ability to grow and scale all of these businesses and manage all of these responsibilities and all of this growth?
Using virtual assistants has been that's been what my know-how since the beginning. So when I really started building businesses, I sold one when I was like 22 years old. I built one and sold one, and I was really young. Then I got into real estate, got pummeled in the 08, 09 crash, went down to literally zero, and started a new business. And as dumb as it is, I sat down and I followed the 4-Hour Workweek book to a T. And I went page by page and I built a business, an e-commerce business online. And it was 100% run by virtual assistants. So I got to travel. I went to Costa Rica and I got to, travel all over and literally disappear, and it operated. I just figured out that you could trust somebody next to you. You could trust somebody overseas. They can screw you the same way. Right? It doesn't matter. And all I did was look at safeguards. What if the worst thing that I can imagine happened actually happened? Then what? And if I could retract a plan backwards that literally didn't have me living in somebody's basement, like I was going to be okay. What's interesting is that when you actually look at the worst case scenario, the absolute worst case is death. But anything below that is pretty much manageable. Like everything can be fixed. And so I couldn't figure out any reason not to try it, not to do it. And not to say that I never had any bad apples or things not go right with team members and so forth, but I just put safeguards in place that, hey, if something happens and there's a red flag, right, we assess it. We seriously address it. Like we set clear boundaries. These are absolutely no's. These are things that we just, okay, we'll work through these. But we had some very clear boundaries, and that was kind of the start. That was what really, really helped getting going. And then from there, that business ran for, God, I want to say 8 years, and did really, really well for a while. And then I was, of course, selling a product that the FDA didn't like. The product got shut down in manufacturing. From there, and everybody kept asking me, how do you do marketing? How was it that you were able to sell so much product and da-da-da? And so then I started doing marketing, and I started helping companies like Keller Williams in their corporate office, and we built up their coaching program, and it was fun. And then I started an agency, and for some reason, when I started my agency, I decided that, I don't know if Gary Vee was in my head, and you have to build a company with 1,000 employees. But next thing I know, I have this office space with glass doors and walls and fancy computer equipment. And, we have 27 employees in the US plus another team of 18, overseas. And I got out of the virtual assistant stuff. And I was so focused on building something, I don't know where I got it, but I thought we were building something great. I thought I was building careers for people and helping. We just had a couple major clients that were a huge amount of our revenue. 2 of them canceled in the same week or within 2 weeks. And it literally put us in debt. So immediately now all of our bills are not being covered. And so I'm coming out of pocket and I'm just racking up debt to pay payroll, thinking like, hey, we're going to get to the next level. All we need to do is just close a few more clients, that awesome spiral. And it didn't happen. And so finally I just hit a wall where I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I had a mentor who had advised me in the beginning of this catastrophe to cut ties, just go, look, close down the company. As a marketing agency, we did everything for everyone, right? We shot commercials, we did website builds, we did Facebook ads, we did all the branding, design work, social media marketing, everything. One thing that it carried over into the virtual assistant world is realizing you can hire specialists that are really good, really good at that thing, that one thing. Or in my case, being in a local office with the best talent that I could afford to hire, I'm going to get a bunch of generalists. I'm going to get a bunch of people who are mediocre at best at a few things. Because I didn't have the money to hire big. I didn't have the capacity to hire enough people to be specialists in every piece that we needed. And we were doing way too much for way too many. And so what ended up happening was I didn't listen to the guy who told me to close down the business. I sucked it up and I racked up over $250,000 in debt. I had this huge office. We're not using any of it. I thought clients would come in and be impressed with our conference room. Nobody came to our conference room. And we went through that whole, struggle. And then I caught an interview with him and he went from $50,000 to $400,000 a month in like 7 or 8 months. And meanwhile, we weren't growing and I was racking up debt. I just texted him. I said, what the heck did you do? And he goes, you didn't listen to me, did you? And I said, no, I didn't. So within the next, I think it was like 2 days later, I fired everybody, closed down the business, stopped paying my rent, had to go into a lawsuit and eventually settle to get out of my office lease. And I just went backwards. I said, okay, I need to think about this in a much more practical sense. And so I decided to relaunch, do one thing for one niche. And we went from $0 to $109,000 a month in revenue in 4 months. We doubled 4 months later. And then I got the idea, well, hold on, if I could do that with it was an agency in the wedding space. If I could do that with that, why can't I do that with Level 9 Virtual? So then I said, okay, let's just do the exact same thing. And then we did that and the business exploded and Level 9 Virtual got huge. And so, yeah, so that's been there's my tale.
What are some of the kind of leadership principles that you abide by now and our listeners? What are some of the things as you look at growing, scaling, and supporting people for doing that today?
It started with me personally is the willingness to fail and being okay with failing. Even most employees in most companies are afraid to do something wrong and then get in trouble by their supervisor. We do the opposite. So as long as you don't do anything that's malicious or, that is intended to harm, you're allowed in our company to fail. You can go and we can try something. You can get approval to try whatever you think is going to do the right thing in the path that we're trying to go down for whatever service. You're allowed to attempt and look for support, ask for support. But the bottom line is you're allowed to fail. Now, after the failure, the biggest thing that we're looking for is what do you do after? What do you learn from it? Are you taking what you learned and actually applying it? Now, if you go fail and then you just ignore it and you do the exact same thing again, we have a problem, and that's going to become a character problem, right? And we need to either address it or we need to replace it. But what my biggest thing with leadership is allowing people the freedom and really the capacity to make attempts based on their best judgment to try new things, to innovate, to improve processes, and to fail. And I encourage, if our team isn't failing often enough, that means we're not trying anything new. We're just cruising through the motions. And so that's been one thing that's been gigantic with our leadership and what I believe that everybody needs to have the freedom to do. But then the next thing is that what I've gotten better at, I failed at really, really bad previously, is understanding where people should be going in their career rather than where I would like them to go in their career. And unfortunately, I had somebody who was a huge major player in my company to move her into an executive type role, the obvious next step for her in her career. It seemed like it. However, looking back, because now she's not even with the company anymore, because I pushed that on her, it wasn't the right fit and we ended up losing her. Looking back, I go, you know what? She was the best at this one thing over here. But instead, I forced my feeling and what I believe she would have wanted. It's like, who wouldn't want to become a C-level executive in the company? Who doesn't want that? Well, somebody who doesn't have any desire to do that. And so that was something that was very hard for me to understand, that I was the one who screwed that up. And so I ended up losing one of my longest team members that had been with me basically since I started the company. That was really, really devastating to learn that I did it. That was my poor leadership by not recognizing how, like, what her major talent was, what her personality profile would allow, the capacity that she could actually take on. And I screwed that up. And so it's been something I've been very, very serious about learning and improving on, so that we can move people into the correct roles within the company that allow the company to do what we would like it to do.
Oh, and what kind of processes have you put in place to support that?
We started doing these little things. Like we used to do these stupid meetings that was like, hey, how's everybody doing? What challenges are you working on? And we realized, like, we started to get repetitive. Nobody wanted to do the meetings. So everybody kind of said, nope, everything's good here. Oh, everything's good here. These two people always had the same issues. And it was kind of like, oh my God, all we're doing is regurgitating things. So what we started to do is we broke it down into each division of the company and each service set, and the leaders of those would then get with their team and they begin the process of working on professional development. It's constant. Hey, where do you see yourself in the next 6 months? What would you like to be doing? Is there anything in your role that we can support you trying something new? You know, do you want to learn a new skill? Is there something that we can support you learning a new skill? Little things like that are the beginning. Then I look at the management team and I say, okay, great. From here, where are you looking? You know, what do you have your sights set on? Are you comfortable where you are? Is there something new you'd like to learn? Usually if somebody's saying, hey, I want to try to learn something over here, they're looking for some lateral movement or some vertical movement. You can see it because they have an interest somewhere else. So that's been giving us a lot of indicators. So I would say, rather than it just being these formal reviews, it's this constant open communication, constant. And we have such good communication now, me with my leadership team, and then my leadership team with their team. That communication has been so clear and clean that we've been able to move people into different roles really, really well. So that's kind of our process. It's not anything major structured, but you know, we do obviously keep notes on it. We're tracking, but the main thing is crystal clear communication.
And one of the things I read about parenting is, like, basically look at what your kid is interested in and nurture what they're interested in. And you're kind of doing the same approach.
That's right. There's no difference. It's just a matter of, you know, maturity and so forth, but there is no difference. They're going to give you hints where they're trying to go and what they want in their career and in their life. And, you know, we had the reverse effect, though, when we're talking to somebody who, you know, we find that we really love this gal. Turns out she just wants more time at home with her kids. Her husband works with us as well. She works with us. She's been with us longer than her husband. He's phenomenal. And like, we never want him to disappear. And unfortunately, she just decided that she's going to stay home with her children. And I'm like, you know what? I love that, because you're doing the thing that's most important for your family. So I'm sad that we lost the team member because she was fantastic. However, at the same time, that is her path. That's where she is going to be most effective in life for her family and so forth. And guess what? Her husband is probably going to perform better because the duties at home are actually easier for him, right? So now we may have increased productivity in one area because we lost productivity somewhere else. So we'll see how that plays out. But I mean, it is. Everybody will tell you exactly what they want. They just may not tell you exactly what they want.
Yeah. Well, what I think is cool for you as a CEO is, you know, I see a lot of people CEO who are doing a bunch of stuff that's very, very active. And like, I'm not saying you're not active, but what you are active in is listening, is supporting people. Like, you recognize that is your main job, to help people to get the most out of them, to help them get the most out of the clients. I want to touch base on something that I read, is because I was doing my research here, is one of the approaches that you have, it sounds like, you know, how do we put multiple VAs with a client so that you can kind of master that depth of skill. So instead of having a VA who's expected to be, and I'm asserting here, instead of having a VA who becomes a generalist for you and they're pretty good, a team of VAs so that you really get the best of them.
Correct.
Drives the output for the client. Did I misread that, or is that how you?
No, and that comes from my previous failure where I couldn't hire people who were specialists. So I got a bunch of generalists who were kind of okay at a bunch of things. I went, whoa, that's not the best thing to do. And if I cannot do that for my clients, and I don't let them hire somebody who does 72 skill set tasks, that doesn't solve your problem. Your problem is that you want to provide service, because the majority of our clients, a lot of them are example agencies, right? So we're in between them and their client. Our VAs very often happen to be like the service provider on behalf of the client. And so with that, if we don't give them somebody who's a specialist in a skill, and we give them a generalist, it's only going to last a period of time. And then they're going to be like, okay, I need somebody better, right? I need them better at this one thing. So now we just go, okay, you can't hire somebody who's okay at a bunch of things. We're only going to provide you somebody who's good at something specific. When we know for a fact that they are good at this, and then we continuously mold them and give them more resources and training, and we want them to be better and better at that skill set. And the other aspect of it is we do personality profiling. I want to find out what your personality is. You may want to be a developer, but the reality is your personality is much more customer focused. So if you're much better at communicating, then you're probably not going to be a great developer. Developers by nature are not great communicators, right? And if you just, if you were to look at like disc profiles and things like that, they're just not. They're on literally opposite ends of the spectrum. And so what we don't do is we try not to cross over personality profiles with skill sets. And that's been really helpful in providing good teams where we can give a balance to our clients.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, what personality profile test are you guys using?
We use DISC mostly. It's the easiest and the fastest for us to get our team to use. They're familiar with it for the most part because so many, VA companies use it. That's what we've stuck with. It's been effective in the way that we operate. I know that, Myers-Briggs and all the other ones that are out there are fantastic. We just haven't gone down that road, and so far it's working. So don't fix what ain't broken, right?
You look at what's happening in the future. What are you most excited about for the future of your life and the future of your business?
Oh, most excited about? I think, the turning economy creates opportunities. And, a lot of people are going to look at the downside, but the biggest and greatest businesses of all times, a lot of them were started during depressions and during down economies. And so there's huge opportunity that opens up. And what I think that is most important is that we evaluate ways to excel in the circumstances that are actually existing. So rather than wishing that things were different, we'd rather focus on how things are going to be and figure out how to make money. So things like, whether somebody's a believer or not a believer that digital currency is coming, my thought is, guess what? You just better figure out how to make money using digital currency. That's just a fact. So what does that look like? What's it going to be like to take payments? What's it going to be like to make payroll? Like what are all those things? So preparing ahead of time that's okay. I think people should do that. But I think realizing, if you're a company that requires a lot of financing, you're probably getting your butt kicked right now because financing sucks. So we're looking at other methods. Well, we've been, I'm kind of a prepper, so we've been stacking cash and going, hey, the economy isn't going to be this great and interest rates aren't going to be zero for long. So we better prepare ourselves for when things are different, right? And so looking into the future, I'm interested in projects and investments and businesses that are going to be basically, recession proof per se. So we just launched a business, it officially launched last week. We're rolling out kind of our full launch this coming week. And this is a 100% recession proof business. In fact, we will be totally important in big businesses and small businesses in the bad times. And then we're going to be just absolutely gravy. And of course, everybody will spend money on it in the good times. So I'm looking at those as far as opportunities go. Investment wise, maybe the real estate market will come down and we'll just continue to buy real estate, but we'll see.
Thanks for sharing today. And where can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so level9virtual.com. That's the easiest place. Joe at level9virtual.com is my email. So reach out anytime.